And the goal today is to open up the way, pave the way to a new dawn, a new day, in order to just step into where do you want to be. From where you are right now, the goal today and every day from here on out is, hey, where do you need to be in this moment or in this day in your life? Hello and welcome back here in episode 2 of Your Ultimate Self. We get down, we get dirty, and we reveal those layers. And I'm not talking about the sexy underwear, the shirt. Leave that on, sit down, and very soon we're going to start to unravel the layers of your ultimate self. What are those layers? What is the ingredients that combine to create the ultimate self? So welcome back. It is with my humble honor, Andrew Scopick at your service, to thank you for joining us today on the show. And your ultimate self, what's different about your ultimate self versus another podcast that quite surely you could be enjoying right now? Well, what's different here is we're going to talk about subjects that sometimes get people rattled. Sometimes we got to challenge status quo, status thinking, mainstream thought to be able to get a better appreciation and understanding of what it's going to take to get to that next level. And with the world in such disarray and such a confusing time and place where people want to walk away. I've been notoriously good at walking towards it, moving towards it. And in today's episodes, we're going to unveil the layers and help you just unveil that next version of yourself. And so wherever you are, it's exactly where you're supposed to be. So thank you for joining us. And in episode 2, as we unveil the layers, I want you to make sure you have a pen and paper handy. There's going to be some questions today to help us brave the new way, to step into the new you, the new view. And of course, a little bit of critical thinking in between was definitely going to help us, with that view and the new you. So let's jump in. Why listen? Why now? Why more than ever? Because as I've studied countless high achieving, high performers across the planet, one thing is become very obvious, that it's time to step up. It's really time to step up. More now than ever before in history have, first world civilizations now questioning, when will I get that freedom back? When will I get that choice back? Now, it doesn't matter where you are right now. The fact is, this is a global consensus. This is something that's happening across the globe. Even if maybe your province, your state, your town, your city is somehow in a better position, that's great. Happy for you. But we need to ask these questions because we never know what's around the corner. And today on Your Ultimate Self, we're going to unveil the layers so we can really get a better understanding of what it takes to build up that next version of you. What is that next version of you? So that's where we're going to start right now. How would you describe yourself? If you were at a cocktail party looking quite hearty of sorts, not like a hearty soup, but maybe like a Tom Hardy for all you ladies out there. Tom Hardy's quite the heartthrob. So if you were at a social gathering, you were hanging out, and someone were to describe you as you are right now, what is that? What does that look like? How would you describe that? And more importantly, what would they say if asked, hey, how would you describe Andrew over here? Or how would you describe that Tom Hardy over here? How would you describe yourself? And better yet, here's the big one, like we're saying, how would you have others describe you? What attributes would they characterize? How would they describe what traits, the way you think, the way you act, the way you show up? What is that? Because the first thing we need to do if we're starting to look for a new view is we need to first determine where we are on this wild journey. On this roadmap, where's the starting point? So the starting point for today's call is, not to take a fall and you're right. I haven't been this. No, just on a great day, when you're having a good day, you're putting one in. How would you describe that? How would you describe yourself? How would you have others describe you? You're at a party. You're actually feeling really good. You did get the right sleep. You have been eating well. You have been taking yourself. How would you describe? Who would they describe you to be? And before we jump into the layers, so we can get a better understanding of, maybe how we should represent ourselves inside our Batman layer, inside our cave. Maybe it's time to shave off some of the old habits, the old thinking, the old behaviors. But what are the layers here? Because unfortunately, I have a bit of a bone to pick, and it's with personal development. And I find that there's a lot of mud motivation that gets thrown around out there. And, it took me a long time to figure out what was worth listening to, what was worth applying, what was worth continuing to apply. Because, unfortunately, a lot of educators and teachers out there, I've been shown and I've seen and I've actually heard it straight from their mouth. They don't always have the results they claim to have, and so when you're looking up to someone, and again, thank you for putting yourself out there, but are we really crystal clear on what you've kicked in the derriere? Like, what challenges have you had in your life? And then now, what's the kind of life that you're going to live tonight? And so without further ado, let's jump into these layers to better understand, what is needed at a time like this. If I were to go from where we are, right, describe it. How would others describe it? And the goal today is to open up the way, pave the way to a new dawn, a new day, in order to just step into where do you want to be? From where you are right now, the goal today and every day from here on out is, hey, where do you need to be in this moment or in this day in your life? And so as we start to settle up and understand the key features, traits, characteristics, behaviors, habits of those top achievers, and more specifically, your ultimate self, the question then should be asked and set forth that, number one, how do you think? Because at the end of the day, if we look at layer number one, let's layer it on. Let's slather it on right there. The biggest concept that separates and differentiates the world's best from the average, and of course the below average, is how they think. How they think about themselves, how they think about others, how they think about a given situation. There are a lot of ways we can think about thinking, and unfortunately most people have a little bit of a case of the stinking thinking. But let's start it off by really gauging the question, are you conscious or unconscious? Because most people, they have this raw deal where somehow if they tune out or they're not checked in, that somehow that's thinking. And unfortunately, being a conscious thinker is something that you don't find, I would say, consistently enough out there. And when you do find them, boy, you just know, you're like, whoa, who's this guy? Who's this gal? Boy, I love talking to them. Boy, I want more of that. Because when you're conscious, you have more control. You're taking in and you're saying, hey, what does this mean? You're questioning. What does that mean to me? What does that mean to my loved ones? What does that mean to my life, my journey ahead? And when you get into thinking, not only are there multiple levels to thinking, but maybe we should start with where it all sort of begins. I like to call it the filing cabinet. And I call it the box, the banker's box, as my mother used to call it, the banker's box. And in that box are files. And just like with our thoughts, There are so many thoughts. In fact, at 50, 60, some say upwards of 70,000 thoughts a day. Can you imagine having 70,000 phone calls that you have to take care of? Like, it's unfathomable how many thoughts are showing up on your mind's radar and not showing up every single day. And so what I mean by that is some thoughts, yeah, they're there and they're gone as fast as they come. They're just gone. They're moved on. The wind's blown them off. But unfortunately, over time, what starts to kind of make more sense and more of a rhyme for somebody is that some thoughts predominate them and others don't. Let me give you an example. So let's say somebody's had spent a lot of time thinking about how they can lose that stubborn 30 pounds. And they thought about and they tried the workout program. They thought about cutting calories. They even took action. But unfortunately, like, what is it that gets somebody to keep going versus someone who takes up an idea and it doesn't really flourish or flower, doesn't move forward? The difference really is how you think. And so if we get to that filing cabinet or that banker's box, so to speak, this is where the important files are kept. Now, hear me out. Some thoughts are considered important. What are those thoughts? And why are they stored? Namely, they are stored for survival, to remind you, so that in the future, you have a note saying, oh, by the way, next time this happens, do this. Or remember what happened when this happened. You didn't do that. Maybe you want to consider a new action plan. So when we're thinking about thinking, and by the way, it's not all stinking thinking. It's about, hey, what am I shrinking? Because over here, I prefer to be the person that's lost the weight. But in fact, today I'm not thinking that all that much. And so here is where we need to go. We need to ask ourselves, how do thoughts get rated as being important? Well, here it is, drum roll. When a thought is perceived on that mind's radar and it comes in from any place in your life and an emotion gets attached to it, whether it be a positive or a negative emotion, there's an association attached to it, it gets stored. So as you can imagine, if you've seen something horrific in your life and you've seen something terrific in your life, both of the thoughts that you were having in those moments embedded, imbued, and infused with those negative and positive emotions, feeling, get not only attached, it gets stored. Now, here's what's interesting, is that one could ask, what happens if we're emotionally stepping away? What if we're not showing signs of grief and signs of joy on one end to the other, depression and bliss and joy on the other? Well, then it's going to be really hard for your brain, for your psychology to determine what's important, what's not. And then that's why a lot of people, they don't have a lot of emotional imprints and memories to draw on. But guess what? You work that muscle. It can be trained. We're not going to go on that today. We'll spend multiple podcast episodes on your ultimate self, talking about how we can level up, train the brain so we can reframe instead of going insane. Because come on, no point there, right? So when we're talking about the thinking, the layer itself of the ultimate self that involves the critical thought, at first, let's be honest, we don't know what we don't know. So right now you may be thinking, yeah, I've heard this before and, I've done this stuff and, I have what I have and I need what I need. But at the end of the day, if you don't even realize you need to knead the dough, then you won't even be in the kitchen. You don't even think you even need to go get the ingredients for said bread or dough. And I definitely am not a baker myself, although I do enjoy the delectable tastes that are infused and imbued. But nonetheless, thinking is where it's at. And if you're going through these multiple levels or layers, the first one is you don't know what you don't know. We call that the unconscious incompetence. Number two, you know what you don't know. Now you're consciously incompetent. So for me, let me give you an example. I know that I can't do a thorough oil change on a vehicle, so I leave it to the pros, right? I don't just try and MacGyver myself with duct tape, even if it's a new truck and there shouldn't be any duct tape on your truck. What are you talking about? And so I know I don't know how to do vehicle maintenance, so I hand it off. But here's the next level, is when you know what you know, then you become more confident in yourself. And a lot of people spend more time thinking about what they don't know, instead of spending more time situated, saturated, and infatuated with what they do know. Hold on a second here. Did you hear that? The fact is, the facts are in. And the facts are you are more capable than you give yourself credit for, because we have a predominance and a tendency to swim in the negativity sea around what we don't know and what we don't perform well at. We kind of have this malaise or this hangover, this mental sickness. And here's the thing. That was the sound of fog dissipating off into the distance. And just like any slump that you're in, or feeling like, hey, I'm feeling off today, that too can have the sun come through. So thinking is so vital as an ultimate selfer, because as you probably guessed it, this isn't just a one-off. This is a life sentence to be your ultimate self. And you can tell, look around at the people who are living their ultimate selves. They're smiling, they're engaged, they're having fun, they're being playful, they're looking around, they're checking out the sights and sounds. They usually are enjoying their drink or food or their conversation more than the next, who might be looking over and wondering who's looking at me. Your ultimate self is there to serve you. And the first layer, remember, is thinking, right? Psychology. But more importantly, we'll get in this in later episodes, but we need to strengthen our discipline. We need to strengthen our thoughts. Specifically, what are you even focused on? What are you feeding? What are you fueling your focus with? Because if it's that you don't think you have the money for the bill, and definitely not for the shrills, by the way, that's a nice pen. It's supposed to be like a shrill. And you have a tendency to go towards what you don't want. And in fact, we need to bring that back. Go towards what we do want, what we do want to feel, what we do want to expect. And that focus is literally a gas tank that most people leave on empty. Or they wait for it to be broken. You know, it's like, oh, crap, I guess my gas tank should have been filled up, because they don't know what to focus on and they feel lost or overwhelmed. They don't know what to think about during the storm. And yes, there is a storm overhead, and it's not going to pass anytime soon unless you fly overhead, right over top that storm from above. Boy, it's a beautiful sight for eyes. Now, here's the thing. We're going to move from thinking into the second layer of your ultimate self, and that is the emotions, how they feel. Right? What kind of emotions do they have? How do they feel about, say, a given topic? Like, if they suffer a loss, what kind of emotions do they give that? Here's what I've learned studying countless individuals around the planet and aspiring to become a high-achieving ultimate selfer, that most people think emotions are bad because they've learned, probably from getting angry or from others being upset or throwing off really deep-seated emotions, that we should hold that back. We should limit that. And although maybe you have a propensity or a predominance for moving into a quick reaction type of emotion, maybe as a way to save yourself and, cave in yourself to kind of hide from the pain. And that's okay. We're not here to judge, but there is a bigger, brighter rainbow, and it's time to bring that into tow. And so let's go into the more positive, aspirational emotions, the things that you want to feel, the things that you want to bring to others. How do you want to feel? And so going back to the beginning of this chat today, where are you right now when it comes to your thinking? Where are you right now when it comes to your emotions? And then moving forward, how do you want to feel? That is the ultimate question. And there's a lot of ways we're going to be able to shift emotions, and that's going to be in future episodes. But again, what are the layers? What are the directives? What are the chapter headings if the book was entitled Your Ultimate Self? And you know it is. So thinking, number one, emotions, number two, number three, behaviors. Oh my goodness. I mean, think about this. Imagine for a minute you're focused on something you're not too excited about. You feel as excited as you would imagine because you're not excited. What are you going to feel? Definitely down, unsure, uncertain. Describe then the corresponding or resulting behavior or action that comes with that. At the end of the day, here's one of the biggest misunderstandings is that people are waiting to feel confident instead of becoming confident in a variety of areas in their life, right? Confidence in what? You name it. Health, your relationships, yourself, knowing yourself, having even a confident relationship with your pet, your neighbor, right? Your clients, getting to better understand how do I feel about a given situation? You could be a confident chess player. You could be a confident crocheter. It's maybe something I might consider. Nope, probably not. So here's the thing. You can build a skill in any area, a competency in any area of your life. And in order to get there, well, we want to become confident, of course. But if you don't feel it, your actions may not be in alignment with the best of who you are. And so sometimes you know what you need to do, but you don't do what you need to do. Why does that happen? We'll get to that. We'll spend a lot of time understanding why. Why did that person not act to move themselves forward? And we'll have guests on the show. We're also going to have opportunities for our listeners to not only step into your ultimate self, but actually be coached live and go through the process of how we layer by layer this in so you could step in back into your life and make it happen, right? Sink or swim. And so as we move from behavior and ethics and integrity and character and habits, we also want to look at communication. Communication is the key to your kingdom, both with yourself and with others. Effective communicators effectively articulate what they need, what they feel, what's right or what's wrong, and they step up for others when something's going down. And this is a key area that takes tremendous courage and bravery and faith to build. But guess what? You can build it. I promise you that. And we'll build it together. So as we're looking deeper and deeper, what are the layers of your ultimate self? Well, thinking, emotions, behaviors, communication. And the next piece here we want to start understanding is what does an ultimate selfer really have to engage with and connect with, and that is their relationships, 100% relationships. The relationship that they have with themselves and those around them will literally determine the opportunity, the environment, the possible interactions that can come from those relationships. And that's where the tests really come from. Why be an ultimate selfer? Because showing up feels better. Because being there for someone feels great. And it feels amazing when they're there for you, no questions asked. So as we move into the layers here, just understand that each one of these will have literally countless conversations. And then as we move from communication and character and understanding ourselves and to the relationships and those that are around us, we also have to move into, what does an ultimate selfer do on a daily basis? What is it that they spend their time doing? It's not just communicating and engaging in a relationship. There's other activities, other meaningful activities, contribution, service, action. What is it that people are moving into? And at the end of the day, if you want to pave the way from A to B in your ultimate self, then we need to start looking more critically at the levels beyond just the simple facade or identity. So as we look at the thinking, when do you have the thoughts that don't support you, don't encourage you, What's going on there, right? Because we need to level up. We need to direct our mind. We need to aim our focus. We need to move our thinking forward because, as we know, our mind is predominantly the thing running our body, right? Just think about this for a minute. If I give you some really bad news right now, like maybe you didn't pass this thing, or maybe you're not good enough, or the thing you were hoping for didn't work out. Tell me, if you get really, really bad news right now, and that thought immediately goes in, are you going to feel great and energized? Or does it go the opposite direction? Right? So our thinking literally forms the basis of who we are. And it's not easy because thinking patterns are habitual. And just like I have a tendency to go to work a certain way on a certain route, right? It's like, oh, without a doubt, that's the route. Let's go. And you take the highway, let's say, but then the highway's slowing down and you see someone pull off the highway and you're like, where are they going? You don't have a GPS. Maybe it's the days before GPS, if you can imagine that, barely. And you follow this person and you don't know where you're going, but you're like, okay, kind of have my bearings. My vehicle shores north and south. So I understand I got my compass here, and you just keep going. And then eventually you find, whoa, that saved me some time and energy, frustration, being unstuck in traffic. But if you were asked to go ahead and recite that exact route, there's no way you'd be able to do it, without a doubt, because you haven't ingrained it, you haven't repeated it, you haven't created the pattern consistently. So when we're creating new neural pathways, that comes from creating massive levels of change, consistency in behavior and action. But again, it starts with the right thoughts, right? Anchoring them, echoing them, and then making sure you put some fuel behind them. So as we look to thinking, emotions, and the feeling, of course, we have behavior and actions and having more deeper levels of satisfaction. We also got to really look at this communication that you have with yourself and those around you. And of course, the relationships. The relationships are key. I'll tell you, if you have a challenging relationship in your life, that right there is your great opportunity right now. And I've had a myriad of relationship challenges. And it's part of the reason, after watching my family, studying my life, I said, hey, there's got to be a better way to cut through this with a knife. Be able to say, hey, Adam, do we need the tension and the stress and the worry constantly filling our day and our week? Can we step into something that's going to feel a lot better? And so let's fly south for warm weather and invite your brothers and sisters, your moms, your dads, your uncles, your friends with you, because without them, what would life really be without connection? So again, the final piece to this, we're going to talk about how to start a side hustle, how to get paid more. How do I contribute meaningfully, consistently, and again, and continue to drive value up? Because here's the thing, we all enter the market with a zero price. Regardless if somebody's family's inherited some sort of wealth and riches, most of the time, if the discipline's not there, generational wealth often gets lost unless it's built into the family, into the character and the culture in that environment. So as we dive deeper into each episode, just get ready to flip into flight mode or go mode, race mode, be more patient mode. You get to choose, right? And so I just want to encourage you and let you know that maybe right now you're struggling. You're not sure who you are or who you've been. You can't even think about how people would describe you, let alone how you would describe yourself. And that's okay. Just meet it where you're at, and we'll take the next step after that. And so the better question is, if you could dream a little further, a little brighter, a little further, and with more detail and vivid color, who would you like to be? Who do you deserve to be? Who is it time to be? And more importantly, what are the kinds of emotions you want to feel? What is a life you want to experience? Because that right there, that reality requires more of you to come through. Not just in sort of a glancing rear view sort of way, but I'm saying cut through, drive through, and make it come true. Because at the end of the day, you're here for a number of set days, and you can bring your own ways. You know, you can show up this way, you can show up that way, but I'm going to tell you right now, you deserve it, you've earned it, and we're ready to go to the next episode. We'll see you again soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope this opens up a little more hope into your future beyond the clouds. And I'm going to remind you that no matter what you're going through right now, there is another level, and your ultimate self is coming through. We'll talk to you soon.